Hey friends, my name is Alan Lee and I've been doing handyman work almost my whole life. First started out doing it for a lot of neighbors, a lot of friends, a lot of family members, and then I actually started my own business here about 6.5 years ago. Been doing the handyman industry ever since, and it has been absolutely awesome. But with that, I have made a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of things wrong, and I suspect that other handymen out there have done these same things incorrectly, or people that are just starting out are maybe possibly on the track to do these things incorrectly. So my hope for this video is to talk about the 5 mistakes that most handymen make and how you can avoid those things. Now, the first mistake that is something that most people struggle with is simply not charging enough. Now, not charging enough for handyman work is very impactful for yourself and also your family, because if you're not charging enough, you're not making enough and you can't possibly pay the bills. I've seen throughout the years a lot of people start this industry and start in the handyman business and just simply not charging enough, so therefore they kind of went back to their old line of employment. It's a very simple thing, but it's also very complicated as well on the other end. The biggest thing that you need to remember is that you are out there to do this for a living. We're not just out there to help people out. We're not out there to give to charity. If you are, that's great, but the majority of handymen are out there to secure some sort of freedom, right? Entrepreneurship is all about freedom. A lot of that freedom is financial freedom and also freedom to do things with the time that we want to do that with. And we can't possibly do that if we're not charging enough money for the jobs that we need to be charging for. A lot of this comes from just self-doubt, kind of a fear mindset, not really feeling like you can charge what you are worth charging. A lot of people, when they're talking about charging and pricing handyman jobs, they really struggle with it because they think about what they would pay someone to come to their house and do that line of work. That's not what it's about. I got the majority of this content. I kind of got the idea to make this video from Essentials Craftsman, which is absolutely an awesome. He's a contractor that I follow, and he talks about that thought is irrelevant. What you would pay someone to do that same work is irrelevant, because what really matters and what it comes down to when you're talking about charging for the work that you do is how much are your clients willing to pay to get that work done. That's ultimately what it comes down to. That's supply and demand. If people are willing to pay a certain amount for the work that needs to be done, you can charge that amount to get that work done and to do that work well. One huge thing to focus on, though, is to always make sure that you are doing a quality job. Make sure that you do a quality job and charge a good price. You know, that is a very important thing that you need to think about. We actually have a fairly easy equation to figure out what you need to charge for handyman services, and that's really just figuring out what your expenses are. This is probably where the first place that most people go wrong is they don't even know what their expenses are. So you need to figure out what your fixed costs are in your business and your variable costs. Figure out how much it costs you to run your business. That's keep the lights on, that's pay insurance, that's pay payroll, pay to keep your truck going, put fuel in your truck, put tires on your truck, things like that. Figure out all your hard costs and actually take that number and multiply it by a certain equation. So what I typically do is add 20% to that for like a break-even number, then add another 20% to that number for profit, and then you divide that by how many working hours there are in a month, and then you figure out how much you need to be charging per hour. Now, I know a lot of people, they say, well, Alan, I heard it's not good to charge by the hour. It's definitely not good to charge by the hour. This is kind of an unspoken hourly rate that you don't mention to your client, but it's only for your head knowledge, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about charging and really charging for the services that you do, everything comes down to an hourly rate and what you need to operate per hour, how much profit you need to make per hour. And it's also important when you're factoring pricing and things like that, is to think about efficiency rule, right? Because you might be out there for 8 hours a day, but it's kind of impractical to think that you're going to be 100% efficient and get 8 hours worth of work done in an 8-hour day. Because you have to do things, you have to stop and eat lunch, you have to stop and go to the bathroom, you have to stop and get gas in your vehicle, you have to run to the hardware store, you have to talk to the client, you have to answer phone calls. There's all kinds of things that you're doing in any typical 8-hour day rather than being on the roof nailing something down. So you have to factor in efficiency. Typically what we see is about a 70 to 80% efficiency rate. So if you, on any 8-hour given day, you can roughly figure you're going to get 5.5 to 6 hours worth of work done. That's actually billed hours. So you're going to want to factor that into what you charge per hour to make sure you're covering those full 8 hours in that 5.5 to 6 hour working day. That's a very important aspect because, again, if you're not charging enough, you can't keep going out there and doing work. One huge thing is, as a business owner, you need to take care of yourself first. It's great to take care of clients. It's great to give them good prices. It's great to do quality work. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself and your own personal needs, you're not going to be around to offer those good services to those clients. So that's a very important aspect about charging enough. Number 2 is communication. Communication is key. I always tell my employees that communication is key, and err on the side of over communication, especially when you're talking with clients. A lot of times things get misunderstood or misconstrued or just don't get heard in the midst of a conversation. So you want to make sure that you're erring on the side of over communication so that what you're trying to say, especially if it's an important thing, that is getting across. Sometimes we may say things, but the way that people understand things is not the way that they don't understand what we're saying the way that we mean it. So it's very important to, sometimes you might have to rephrase a certain thing, a certain topic, maybe 2 or 3 different ways, and then make sure that the client or the other person that you're talking to fully understands what you are accurately communicating to them. One huge thing about communication is, one thing that I think is very important is under-promising and over-delivering. A lot of people that you see that they might come out with a big ego or something like that and kind of over-promise something, and then when things go wrong, or maybe you're replacing a toilet and you turn the angle stop valve off and you realize that the angle stop valve is leaking. Like at that point, that's when you're going to have to go to the client and upsell an angle stop because it's leaking. If you've overpromised that job, they have expectations where this is it, this is what it's going to cost, this is, and you're going to get it done flat, like there's going to be no problems whatsoever, which is not, that's not a real world. In the real world, there's always problems, there's always variables, there's always things that happen. So if you underpromise and overdeliver, because if you've underpromised and told someone that, like a Central Craftsman, he gives the example of doing, a job that might take a month, right? He says, well, this job, in theory might take a month, but I'm at the graces of my painters, I'm at the graces of the weather, I'm at the graces of, can I get lumber or not? So if you tell the client, this may take up to 3 months, depending on how these things go, and then say you knock it out in 3 weeks or a month, you are a hero to that client, right? But if the opposite happens, they actually get very frustrated and they will never forget that you weren't able to deliver that project when you told them you would deliver that project. So communication is very important. I love one example he gives is, what is, when you go into the house and you do a drywall repair, what's the damage to that house going to look like, right? Is there going to be dust everywhere? And also some of that is onto you to how to mitigate some of that, but also be upfront, be forward with the things that the client needs to know, so that they are prepared for the job at hand, right? Are you going to need to set up, a zip wall? Are you going to need to, set up a fan? Are you going to need to spray texture and then come back another day to paint? Like, be upfront with these type of things so that the client is not caught off guard when these things happen, because there's always variables, there's always things that happen. So in the line of communication, we always want to try and be, as upfront as we can with some of the variables that may happen. And if the variables don't happen, that's fantastic. That's great. But that is a very important thing, is you want to focus on communication. Number 3 is something that we have all encountered. We get those people that they give us a call and they say, hey, can you do this job super cheap for me right now? Just give me a really good deal because I got a lot more work down the road. Like, you better believe it. I got a lot more work, and you are the person I'm going to call if you give me a good quote right now. I want to make sure that, you give me a good quote, we work together well, and then, down the road I'm going to have a bunch of work coming to you. Yeah, so that is really, that could be a red flag for sure. I have encountered this a lot of times where you have given someone a good deal based on the thought that they're going to have future work for you, and 9 times out of 10, it usually never happens. 9 times out of 10, you as the handyman are the person that's losing out on that transaction. What you actually want to do is you want to quote that job, that first job, at a good, honorable price that you need to charge, like we talked about at the first one. You need to charge the rate that you need to charge, and make sure that it works with that client. Because if you charge less now, they're going to expect lesser charges down the road. And if you don't deliver those lesser charges down the road, they're not going to keep hiring you. Believe me, I've been around, I've encountered this type of client many times over, and it never ever works out. So very important to not negotiate down your prices just for the hope of future jobs. You need to stick to your guns. You need to charge what you need to charge. And if a person's not willing to, pay you what you need in order to make a living, in order to put food on the table, in order to feed your kids, then at the end of the day, they're not your ideal client, and you can go move on. I love the saying, there's plenty of fish in the sea. There are plenty of clients out there for everyone, and in reality, there is a handyman out there that will suit that client. There is a handyman out there that will, charge what the client needs to charge, and if you are charging more than what that client needs to charge, that's fine. You just go on and you find the client that works best for you, because at the end of the day, it's really all about the reputation that you create in this industry. And if you have a reputation of being the cheap guy, someone who comes in, gets it done, and is cheap, then you are going to have that reputation for the rest of your business. It's going to take you a long time to get rid of that reputation. So the reputation that you want to have is someone that creates a good product and sells it at a good price. That's ultimately what you need to be. And if that good price for you is overpriced for some people, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, every single client is different, and every single area is different, and what you need to charge is different than what I need to charge, and it's different than what Bill in Oklahoma needs to charge. These are all different circumstances, and it's important for you to charge what you need to charge and find the client that's willing to pay you what you need to be paid in order to do their work. So that's an important aspect, to not negotiate just to get work, and lessen your price. Stick to your guns and charge what you need to charge. Okay, number 4, this is something that has been huge. This is something that I have struggled with for, it's pretty much a struggle, throughout the whole nature of my business. And it's something that's progressively improving, which is good. It's important to see trajectory and things like that, but there's always improvement, and that is keeping accurate books. In this business, it's very, very, very important. Just like in every business, it's very, very, very important to keep accurate books and keep accurate expenses and income of your business. So in the handyman industry, you have a lot of expenses. You have materials that you're buying for clients. You have things that you're buying. We had to buy a radiator cap for one of our trucks today, right? That's an expense. There's always expenses, and there's always income. Hopefully there's income. And these are things that you need to keep track of, not only for tax purposes, but also for growth purposes, so that you can do trajectory and KPIs and things like that you get more into kind of as you get a little bit more advanced into the business. But I remember my first year in business, we were talking to a tax lady, and she's like, "Hey, we're ready to pay taxes." And I had absolutely no clue even how much money we brought in our first year as a handyman. I didn't even keep track of anything. I didn't have an invoicing and estimating software. Everything was basically, I wrote invoices on Google Docs, and I didn't have any type of order or anything like that. So each year I've been getting progressively better at keeping my books and keeping track of, 1, how much money is coming in, and then number 2, how much money is going out. And then the integration of things like QuickBooks Online has been super helpful for my business because we've actually been able to log those connect with your credit cards, your bank accounts, things like that. And they create things after they're reconciled of things like profit and loss statements and things like that. So you can actually know where your business is standing so that, for one, you can pay taxes correctly, and you know how much money you made, and you know how much money you lost if you lost any money. So it's very, very important to keep accurate books for bookkeeping purposes and for growth as well. And then number 4, I think, is a very interesting topic. It's kind of it has 2 schools of thoughts. Right? It's kind of on managing growth. And there's 2 schools of thoughts. You can either, when you're growing a business, you can either be technician heavy or you could be admin heavy. We personally have chosen the admin heavy side of business for now. And I'll explain a little bit to you why. But I want to explain the technician heavy side first. When most people are out there doing work, they're like, wow, I can make a whole lot more money if I hired another technician. If I brought on another guy to help me out on these projects. Yeah, some projects do require 2 people, but what I'm talking about is having 2 technicians where one guy's going and doing one job, one guy's going to do another job. That's great. You're making a lot more money, but at the end of the day, there's still the headache, the other side of the business, which is the actual admin side of the business, where you're the person as the business owner who's answering all the phone calls, writing all the estimates, sending all the invoices, creating all the work orders, telling people what to do, And that's just the half of it, right? And then paying taxes and figuring out uniforms and all this kind of stuff, pulling their hair out. That is particularly why we chose to go the admin side when growing a business, is we are pretty admin heavy, which I'll tell you up front, it does cost a lot more money. There's a lot less money to go around at this point in stage, but we have it where our first hire was a CSR. A customer relations representative in the office, someone to answer all the phones, answer the emails, answer the Yelp requests, the Google requests, things like that. Our second, and then so at that point, after we hired the CSR, I became basically the estimator and the technician. And then I hired a new estimator, so someone to do estimates and things like that. And then I hired a technician assistant, and then after that I hired another technician. So now I have a CSR, an estimator, a technician assistant, and technician. So now at this point, we have a total of 5 employees, that's including me, right? CSR, estimator, tech assistant, and technician, and then me. So now at this point, now it's just a multiplication game. So you need more vans, more people. So you get a van, technician, and you keep plugging them in. And then at that point, you're really in a stage of growth, and you have all the admin stuff already figured out. So you have all of the phones being answered, you have all the estimates being written, you have all the invoices being created, things like that. And you have different systems and processes. And the technician assistant is actually a really cool role. The technician assistant's role is basically to pick up materials from the local hardware store and deliver those to the client's house before the technician comes and does the work. And his second job is to pick up all the debris from the job and take those to the dump. So it's actually really cool. Everyone has their own process and things like that. So I wanted to make a contrast between when you're talking about managing business growth, you can either go the heavy on the admin side or heavy on the technician side. I personally like the heavy on the admin side because you're getting all that stuff off your plate as the business owner so that you can have more freedom. Whereas in the technician side, you may be making a little bit more money, and it's probably a little bit more money, but you're not able to clock out at 5. You're not able to go home and enjoy the night with your family because you have to answer calls, you have to return calls, you have to write estimates, you have to write invoices. You get the picture. Whereas over here on the admin heavy side, I get to clock out at 4:30, which is really cool. And I don't have to work Saturday and Sunday because all of that admin stuff is taken care of. So it's very important to manage business growth as you grow in this business. And that will happen inevitably as you get more clients, as you get busier in this business. And it's also very, very important to take care of your employees, because employees are really hard to come by, and good ones that really believe in the mission that you have are really hard to find. So it's very important to take care of those employees and make sure that they feel nurtured and just complete in this business. So very important to do that, very important to create processes and systems for each and every one of them. One thing I wanted to talk about that is very helpful for new handyman business owners is we are having a handyman growth convention where each year we're starting it for the first time here in October of 2023, but we're going to be having it yearly, hopefully up to 2, maybe 3 times a year. You can find more information over at handymanjourney.com. But Handyman Growth Convention is going to be absolutely phenomenal. We are going to have, it's a networking event from handymen all around the world are going to be coming together, and we're going to be talking about things like pricing, marketing, sales, and systematizing your business. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So that's something that I wanted to recommend. You can find more information, like I said, at handymanjourney.com. But this has been just a quick little video of 5 mistakes that most handymen make. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on some of these things. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Also, like this video and subscribe to this channel, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.